Alright, let's talk about Fate for a moment. No, not that kind of Fate. I am talking about Holy Grail War Fate. You know, that anime series that is memed to death for being very difficult to get into and understand? Yes, that kind of Fate. I was there when it was written, or well, animated back in 2006 with Fate Stay Night, and later Zero and Unlimited Bladeworks. After that, I kinda dropped out from it and I came only slightly back around Fate Apocrypha. But that is just the anime side of things for Fate. In terms of games related to it, I was a bit longer and more recently invested into them. Mostly via Fate Extella Link and the Umbral Star. It are games that I collected the collector's edition of and I even considered to review, however that idea fell through rather quickly as there was not a lot more to say about it than them being lukewarm warrior/Musou games with a Fate skin. Now, as somebody that enjoys Fate, it was fun. Mediocre, but fun, and with that everything was said. But then came Fate Samurai Remnant on the horizon. Again, intrigued me to step back into Fate once again and going for a review. Which took a bit longer than I hoped, which is a very common thing on this channel, but nonetheless, I got to play it and now review it. In Fate Samurai Remnant, we travel to feudal Japan where we follow a guy named Irori. Together with his sister, he lives quite a peaceful life in the city of Edo, until he is selected to participate in the Waxing Moon Ritual. A conflict that involves 7 randomly picked participants whom fight each other to the death. The last one standing is of course the winner and is gifted a single wish that they can have fulfilled in any shape or form. Each participant also is gifted a servant who helps them fight in this conflict. But these are not just normal servants, no, they are characters based on historical, mythical, or legends from mankind's history. Based is in a very loose term here, cause looks, their feats, and even their gender sometimes can be different than we remember. And when it comes to their power levels, well, the term based on history, legend, or myth can be literally thrown out of the window, as they are all dialed up to 11 and completely over it, as every single one of them is insanely overpowered. But as a mere mortal, as just a common citizen involved in such a conflict, let alone winning it, is an immense and maybe even impossible task. Yet that is exactly what Irori aims to do. Together with his servant Saber, he aims to defeat all of the other masters and their demigod servants, beating the odds and claiming overall victory. At first, it seems very much like Fate Samurai Remnant offers an underdog story, mainly as we follow a character that compared to the other participants knows little to nothing what is going on, and overall seems very much out of place in the conflict that is the Waxing Moon Ritual. He's not an exceptional warrior, nor does he have any social status that can give him an edge in such a conflict. But as the story progresses, it seems to lean more to a story where we follow a character that is punching way above his weight and trying to beat the odds constantly. To put it in Fate setting terms, it's David versus Goliath, but instead of one Goliath there are like 10 plus Goliaths to beat. Which sounds insane, cool, but insane. And it's this insanity that makes Fate, to a degree, so much fun. And here in Fate Samurai Remnant, it did not pull any of its punches, yet manages to thankfully create a balance with this insanity instead of just focusing on it. The story offers, next to this insane setting, a lot of nice R&R moments with other characters, servants, masters, and of course Saber. The other servants and masters have their moments when doing side quests, already taking off the edge of all the insanity and seriousness of the conflict. But it's Saber and the active connection that is shared with Irori that really brings balance and therefore fun on both the insanity of the plot but also the character interaction. I especially liked and enjoyed the chemistry these two had between each other. While being counterparts of one another, their conversations were always full with funny moments and sometimes playing off each other a little bit like good cop, bad cop. However, despite the fact that the story found a good way to bring balance, it did a poor job maintaining it. Once you reach the halfway point of the game, many of these fun R&R moments with characters start to become less frequent, and the chemistry between Irori and Saber start to fade away. tipping the story to one side of the scale. And to make matters even worse, from this point on, the story itself starts to falter and leave a lot to be desired to. The setup and start of the story is just very solid here, and its exploration as the player is a lot of fun, even for fans of Fate. Because while the common concept of the Holy Grail War, the staple of the Fate series, is present in this game, there's still a lot more to explore, like who Saber is, but also who Irori and the other side servants are. But the moment the story has to take on an actual course and fixate on it, the writing seems to not know how to progress and build on its initial setup. The goal is to beat all the other masters. It's simple as that. And that should be the focus for the majority of the story. But instead it starts to pander around a lot, and instead of daring to pull the trigger on important moments, it instead decides to literally pussy out of it. It happens so many times that you are successfully facing and beating other masters and servants, only for the plot to go, "Congrats, you beat the enemy, but oh no, they are too strong, let's just run away." Making me seriously wonder what the point was of it all. What was the point of constantly building up these encounters and having me to fight them? What was the point of this complete 10-minute face-off where I was clearly winning, only to just get the plot deciding that I wasn't winning? Now, I agree that winning something like the Holy Grail, or in this case the Waxing Moon Ritual, requires planning and tactics, and as we all know, those are not always going as planned. But surely you can portray a plan getting ruined by your opponent, or you just getting outmatched by an enemy in a better way. In fact, the game itself does this in a better way at the very start of it. In the tutorial for the combat, we are fighting against a servant which we absolutely cannot beat. Instead, we just have to hold on for as long as we can until we find an opening to run away. And that is how you do it. Not by just having the plot decide your victory no matter how well you did in combat. Of course, I can forgive the plot if it does it one time, sure. Who cares? But when you pull it like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, that's just too much. And pulling this tactic multiple times in a story also makes the story itself just boring, as again, it seems like it does not dare to pull triggers, to have characters lose, to change the situation and build up towards an end. Instead, it just results in making it feel like it's wasting your time. And this feeling of time wasting and not daring to move the plot actually forward is doubled down on in the second part of the game. Exploration of the setting, story and characters logically end at some point, but there is nothing to replace that void. Instead, the void only becomes bigger as the game again also dials back on the fun interactions between Saber and Irori and the other servants, ultimately resulting in a story that drags on for too long with nothing happening while nothing interesting is happening on the side. And when the story starts to pick up its pacing, when it finally starts to pull the trigger on things, it's too late. You can't start building up characters and events in the last act of the game. You need to properly do that before it, which it just doesn't. To draw a unexpected but scary comparison, the story experience of Fate Samurai Remnant is similar to some of the Sword Art Online games. Great premise at the start, good setting, a lot of fun exploration and delving into things. But you will reach a point where the story just drops it all and it becomes mundane, wasting loads of story potential in a series that frankly seems to be perfect for games. But where Koei dropped the ball in terms of story, it did surprisingly improve heavily on combat. Koei Tecmo is known for making the Warriors games, but most other games that they make usually are also some form of Musou game. Fate Samurai Remnant is no exception to this, but I was pleasantly surprised of the way they implement the Musou combat into a game like this. Musou games usually boil down to you versus 100 faceless goons and slicing your way through them like butter, focusing on area control and facing a stronger opponent here and there in between. Ultimately, Musou games boil down to two things: a power fantasy and its scratching the bigger number becomes an even bigger number itch, which is a type of gameplay that I enjoy from time to time. But Fate already had the classic Musou treatment, twice. For Fate Samurai Remnant, they took the gameplay and changed it quite a bit. Some aspect of the Musou gameplay was nerfed, while others was made more important and even added some new elements here and there, creating a very familiar type of gameplay, yet also making it new. Throughout the game we play as Irori, who is a decent fighter, but as mentioned before, he's punching way above his own weight. Therefore, having a combat system that focuses on reading the enemy, timing dodges and attacking small openings, while building up the strength for your servants so that they can finish the job, is perfect. Not only to improve or deviate from the Musou style gameplay, but also story-wise, which I absolutely loved of Fate Samurai Remnant. It adds such a nice immersion to what otherwise would have been a mindless hack and slash. However, despite it being a good idea and I loved it, the combat shows that Koei still has a lot to learn to make a game like this. Combat is for the longest time in the game not the main focus, especially in the first 5 hours. You barely touch it as it's mixed into the story as beat 'em up moments. It balances the large amounts of story with some mindless good-looking action. But just like in the story, past the 10-hour mark, a large imbalance is created. Instead of these moments being over-the-top fun action moments in the story, it becomes a repetitive grind over time. Now, having the plot decide what the outcome will be of a fight instead of your performance during it is already very annoying. But these fights themselves just feel very uninspiring. When a boss or large beast is thrown on your path, you know you gotta grind its HP down for minutes without much thought. You spam your combo, special attacks and ultimates until the HP bar hits 0. And that's pretty much it. But it's not like the game doesn't try to make these fights interesting. It offers a lot of side aspects to spice up the combat overall. There's a huge emphasis on timed dodges, giving you openings to strike the enemy, not only interrupting their attack but deal extra damage. Then there is the partner system with your servants. As you battle, their bars fill up, and when it's full you can temporarily take control of them and use their insane power to change the tide of battle. Your servants also can by themselves activate a skill via a button prompt, giving reasons to pay attention to the entire battle at all times. And of course there's a skill tree for Irori and the other servants to increase their overall power in battle as well. It's a decent list of things, and I didn't even mention everything, but none of these elements make or break the combat. They are just there. They can be used, but if you do or not, it seems little to not matter at all. Bosses and monsters will remain a long grind of HP bars no matter what you do, and you usually start to cheese them with combos or things so that they take as little time as possible. And there are a lot of these encounters, and they are all thrown at you without little care or pacing, ultimately giving you a very bland feeling in terms of combat, and of course making it a huge loss of potential. Because it's all there, each individual element works as it should, but the foundation it's built on does not complement any of those. I think if they went with a more traditional action combat design, things could have worked a lot better. And that goes not just for the combat, but also for the story itself. It felt like they tried to reshape and focus the Musou formula into a shape that it doesn't really fit into. And saying that just, it sucks. Because damn is this game close on getting a proper full Fate game where we follow and fight as a character in a form of a Holy Grail War. Almost all of the puzzle pieces are there to make it great. It has the interesting plot setup, decent to nice characters with good chemistry. It teases my love for history and mythology, even though it has some odd and unique twists here and there. It has fun, quick and flashy combat, and let's not forget the game itself looks very fine for an anime game. Later Fate animes are known for its visual and sound spectacle, which Fate Samurai Remnant definitely tries to copy and mostly succeed at. And on top of that, we have sound design and a soundtrack that manages to establish a very good atmosphere no matter where you go. But in the end, those are all just puzzle pieces. And those puzzle pieces are placed wrongly here or connected incorrectly to one another, which makes recommending this game pretty difficult. Yes, at times, especially in the first half of the game, these puzzle pieces seem to work very well with one another and just fit. But the closer you get to the end, the rougher it gets. If it wasn't for the fact that I love Fate and really wanted to review this game, I would probably not have completed the game and dropped it the moment the puzzle pieces fell apart. If you are a fan of Fate, then you will love what this game has to offer, and I would recommend playing it. But be warned that the game will turn sour halfway through the game. So if you want to play it safe, consider wishlisting this game until a big sale comes around for it. Other than that, I can't recommend the game. It's not a Musou game, so if you're looking for that, this ain't it. And as an outsider trying to get into Fate, you are much better off going for the anime or playing the original visual novel of Fate, which recently got a release as well on Steam.